Hello there, story lovers and fellow travelers on this unpredictable journey called life. It's so wonderful to have you join me today. Grab a comfortable seat, perhaps a warm cup of tea, and let's settle in for a little while, shall we? My name is Eleanor, and like many of you, I've seen a fair few seasons come and go. I've learned a thing or two along the way, mostly through the fascinating, often bewildering book of experience. Today, I want to share a chapter from my own story, a chapter that might resonate especially with those of you who, like me, are navigating the complexities of family, aging, and finding your own peace amidst it all. This isn't a tale of daring adventures or fantastical realms, mind you. It's a story from the quieter corners of life, a story about choices, their consequences, and ultimately, a rather surprising happiness. It's about a decision I made, a decision many might find unconventional, perhaps even unsettling, especially within the warm embrace of family expectations. I decided to live alone. Now I know for many that might sound like a lonely path for an older woman. Isn't the traditional narrative supposed to be about families gathering together as we age, children taking care of their parents in their twilight years? Absolutely, and it's a beautiful sentiment. But life, as we know, rarely follows neat scripts. My story is about when that script took an unexpected turn, and how sometimes veering off the well-trodden path can lead you to a garden you never knew existed. For years, my life was a bustling, chaotic symphony orchestrated by the needs and lives of my children. Bless their hearts, they are wonderful individuals now, grown and making their own marks on the world. But for a long stretch, we lived together, a multi-generational household that, in theory, should have been a picture of warmth and support. In reality, it had become something else. Let's rewind a bit. After my husband, God rest his soul, passed away, my eldest, Sarah, insisted I come live with her family. "Mom, you shouldn't be alone in that big house," she'd said, her voice laced with concern. "We have plenty of room, and the kids would love to have you." It sounded so right, so caring. My other child, David, echoed the sentiment. Though he lived further away and couldn't offer immediate housing, his support was just as strong. So I moved in. Sarah's house was lovely, spacious, and filled with the vibrant energy of her children. My grandchildren, Emily and Tom, were then in their early teens, full of teenage zeal and hormonal surges. At first, it was comforting to be surrounded by family, to hear laughter and chatter filling the rooms. It felt like a shield against the lingering quiet of my empty home. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the comforting hum began to morph into a jarring discord. It wasn't any single monumental event, but a gradual accumulation of daily friction. My routines clashed with theirs. I was an early riser, cherishing the quiet mornings with my tea and newspaper. Sarah and her husband, Mark, were night owls, often bustling about late into the evening. The kitchen, once my domain, became a shared territory, and suddenly, my carefully organized spices were mysteriously rearranged. My preferred tea brands vanished, replaced by trendier herbal infusions. Then came the noise. Oh, the noise! Teenagers, bless them again, are not known for their quiet contemplation. Music blared from Emily's room, video games echoed from Tom's, and the general din of family life, while perfectly normal, began to grate on my nerves. I found myself retreating to my room more and more, seeking refuge in the hushed silence, feeling like an intruder in my own daughter's home. But the conflicts weren't just about routines and noise. They seeped into deeper layers of our lives. Parenting styles, for instance. I believed in firm but gentle discipline. Sarah and Mark were more permissive, shall we say. I'd offer gentle suggestions when Emily's language became a tad too colorful, or when Tom's screen time stretched into the wee hours. But my advice was often met with polite smiles and a subtle underlying dismissal. "Mom, things are different now," Sarah would often say, and I felt a pang of irrelevance, a feeling of being out of touch, an old record in a digital age. Finances became another subtle source of tension. I offered to contribute to household expenses, naturally, and my pension was comfortable enough. But the way money was managed, the constant, subtle implications that I was perhaps a burden, even though it was never explicitly stated, created an uncomfortable undercurrent. Perhaps the most painful aspect was the gradual erosion of my sense of self. I wasn't just Eleanor anymore, a woman with her own history, her hobbies, her thoughts. I was Grandma living with us, a well-meaning but slightly cumbersome appendage to their already established family unit. My opinions felt less valued, my experiences less relevant. I started to feel invisible, lost in the vibrant hustle of their lives. There were moments, of course, moments of genuine warmth and connection. Emily would occasionally ask me for help with her history homework, and I'd feel a spark of my old self reignite as I shared my love for the past. Tom would sometimes sit with me and show me his latest video game creations, his enthusiasm infectious. But these were fleeting moments, islands of light in a growing sea of unease. One evening, after a particularly draining family dinner punctuated by well-intentioned but ultimately frustrating attempts at conversation, I found myself sitting alone, on the patio, looking up at the stars. The night was quiet, a stark contrast to the cacophony inside. A profound wave of loneliness washed over me, but it wasn't the loneliness of being physically alone. It was the loneliness of being alone within a family, of feeling isolated even when surrounded by loved ones. That was the turning point. Looking at those distant stars, a clarity settled within me. This wasn't working, not for me, and perhaps not even for them. We were all trying, I knew that, but sometimes even the best intentions can pave the road to unintended unhappiness. This living arrangement, meant to bring us closer, was actually pushing us further apart. We were all suffocating, in our own ways, under the weight of unspoken expectations and unresolved conflicts. The decision wasn't made in a rush of anger or resentment. It was a quiet realization, a gentle understanding that sometimes love needs space to breathe. The next day, I sat down with Sarah and Mark. It was a difficult conversation, filled with tears on both sides, but also with honesty. I explained how I felt, not blaming anyone, but simply expressing my need for my own space, for my own rhythm of life, my own quiet. Initially, they were hurt, understandably. They saw it as a rejection, a sign of dissatisfaction. But as we talked, as I patiently explained my perspective, they started to understand. They saw the fatigue in my eyes, the forced smiles, the subtle withdrawal. They saw not rejection, but a reaching out for a different kind of connection, a connection based on choice, not obligation. It wasn't easy to put into motion. Finding a suitable place for myself at my age felt daunting. But with Sarah and Mark's unexpected support, they even helped me find a lovely little apartment in a quiet neighborhood, not too far from them. It all fell into place. Moving out was bittersweet. Leaving their home felt like closing a chapter that had started with love and good intentions, but had somehow veered into a tangled plot. The first few weeks in my new apartment were strange. Silence, absolute silence, filled the rooms. It was initially unsettling, almost deafening, but then slowly I began to hear other sounds. The chirping of birds outside my window, the gentle hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of my own clock. These were the sounds of my own life, my own space, and they were strangely comforting. I rediscovered myself. I started painting again. Something I hadn't done in years, brushes and colors reclaiming their place in my life. I rejoined my book club, lost friendships rekindled over shared pages and lively discussions. I took long walks in the nearby park, breathing in the fresh air, the quiet rustle of leaves a balm to my soul. And here's the most surprising part, the part that often gets overlooked in stories of family conflict. My relationship with Sarah, And David and my grandchildren blossomed. Distance, it turned out, didn't diminish love. It clarified it. Our visits became cherished occasions, filled with genuine joy and laughter, free from the undercurrents of daily friction. We talked, on the phone more often, sharing our lives without the weight of proximity. Emily and Tom started visiting me on their own, wanting to spend time with Grandma in her own space, a neutral ground where we could connect on our own terms. Now, years later, I look back on that decision with no regrets, only gratitude. Living alone wasn't a retreat from life, it was an embrace of it, on my own terms. It wasn't about abandoning my family, it was about finding a way to love them better, from a place of peace and self-respect. My life now is quiet, yes, but it's also incredibly rich and fulfilling. I have my friends, my hobbies, my independence, and most importantly, I have a loving, healthy relationship with my children and grandchildren. They see me not as a burden or an obligation, but as Eleanor, their mother, their grandmother, a woman who chose her own path and found her own happiness. And that, I believe, is a far greater gift to give them than a life lived in quiet resentment and unspoken unhappiness. So, if you are out there, perhaps feeling a similar unease in your own family dynamics, wondering if there's another way, I want to tell you, listen to that quiet voice within you. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for your family is to create space, to allow everyone to breathe and grow in their own way. It takes courage, yes, but the rewards, the peace, the authentic happiness are immeasurable. It's not the conventional path, but sometimes unconventional paths lead to the most beautiful destinations, and that, my friends, is my story. A story of choosing solitude not out of loneliness, but out of a profound desire for peace and genuine connection. I hope it offered you a little food for thought, perhaps a different perspective. If you enjoyed listening to my story, and if it resonated with you in any way, please do give it a thumbs up. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a similar decision? What are your experiences with family dynamics and aging? Share your stories, your insights. Let's create a little community of understanding and support here. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, stories from the heart, please do subscribe to my channel. It means the world to me. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care and be well.